welcome back to the first episode of Simplifying Awwwards UIs. This is a completely new series on this channel. Super duper excited to share this with you all. And today we are building. In fact, we're not building. Right now we'll build after 2 hours. But right now we are reviewing some of the most amazing Awwwards UIs to ever exist. And also we're going to be breaking them down from the point of view of a UI UX designer, sort of taking a look into how you can take your UI designs and how you can make them into pieces which can actually be used for your knowledge as a UI designer. How do you break down these complicated, amazing looking Awwwards UIs and get the kind of knowledge that helps you level up your UI design skills and also create your own Awwwards like UI designs. So let's just jump into what we're building today. Let's just really quickly look at the site that we're going to be looking at. This is called Yerba Mate. It is a beautiful site which is one of the sites of the year in awwwards.com. So we'll just switch over to the complete view and I'll make myself smaller. And this is the site that we're going to be talking about today. It is a beautiful site, super duper amazing, super duper cool. It is one of the sites from awwwards.com. This is one of the sites of the year for this year, and it has so many cool features, so many cool things that I wanted to talk about, break down. On its surface, it looks like a very complicated UI. On its surface, it doesn't look like the most easiest UI to build. You don't know what to do, but we're going to be taking a look into how this was built and hopefully along the way share tips on making this on your own as well. So when I reload this page, and I'm going to start right from the beginning, you guys, you get this beautiful color themed video thing going on. This could be an intro video, that would be completely acceptable, or this could be plain HTML animations, which can also be done in Figma with the on delay function. So that's quite nice. Also, we have this beautiful thing going on, this scan image going on. We talked about how to build these scan images, and we're just going to be taking them down from a Figma perspective, how you make UI designs like this in Figma. We've talked about how to take can images, just solid metal can images, add a beautiful graphic design over it and change the style to multiply, and that gives you this beautiful looking can, and then this just follows the cursor. These are constant animations. You could make them through a video, sort of put them inside, or, and I think this is the more doable one, just after delay have these little graphic vectors sort of animate together. So that's something that we're going to be doing. Also, they've got this very simple navigation section going on, which is super duper simple. This is the notification bar, which you can obviously dismiss, one of the most common things we do. And today we're also talking about all of these really cool navigation things, that navigation sections that are going on. So let's just start breaking things down right from the beginning. The very first thing you notice on this page is there's a plain logo, and there's nothing complicated going on here at all. The next thing we notice here is the shop icon, and this has a couple of different images that when you hover over them, they sort of have this bounce animation. Again, very doable. And just a simple button which sort of goes down by a couple of pixels, and this is just transform translate Y, getting down by a couple of pixels in Figma or in HTML CSS if you're a web designer. Very basic animations, and that exact same effect. And I said this yesterday as well, once you are making a good design and once you're happy with the way your design looks, you just take those effects which you've built. Once you've built some beautiful effects, if you want to make an award site, and you just sort of duplicate them, replicate them with different pieces of information. So they've built this really cool slider, and then they just copy that same effect, that same technicality to the learn section, and that gives you this beautiful second navigation bar. Now the advantage that you have when you have more than one of these sliders coming down is that it gives you a sense of unison, it gives you a sense of theme that otherwise you wouldn't get if you were using two different kind of navigation sections sort of. And again, I've said this yesterday and I'm going to say it again, when you have a lot of buttons instead of just one, when you have a lot of buttons on your right hand side of a UI design, that takes your UI game to a completely different level. This is something that's quite trendy right now. Like, I'm noticing this all the time. Have more than one button. In the beginning we used to say have a single main button on the right hand side, but now having 6 different buttons, literally 6 different buttons, is all the trend, and that's what's cool. Also, these are just simple SVGs that are going on in infinite animation. This guy follows your cursor, and I think that's very, very doable with spline and stuff. So I'm not just going to go into the depths of that, but if enough of you guys type I, we'll start to replicate this in Figma as well. So this is very, very simple stuff. The next thing we're looking at is this simple button. Again, when you hover over it, it just goes down by a couple of pixels. So it has this stroke kind of drop shadow effect that is right here, but when you hover over it, that drop shadow goes down to a 0. And that's the only piece of animation that's happening over here. This is what is making this button have that cool depth kind of look and feel. And also these left and right navigation buttons sort of bounce around. So that's just bounce, hover animation effect, and these are just the simplest topics. Let's take a look at what we have here. So this is again one of the most mind-blowing things ever. Once you click on one of these cursors, you sort of get to navigate this beautiful feel. Again, these exact same effect, if you just try to take a look, these are the exact same effects that we were facing here. A couple of SVGs that are infinitely animating, and the scan that follows your cursor in terms of the direction, and that exact same thing happens on the second section as well. These SVGs are infinitely, and then your cursor is sort of followed by through the scan. So again, same exact effect happens the second time. The only thing that they take care of is their color scheme is on point. As long as your color game is on point, as long as you have the right colors going for you, you can have those exact, again here, check this out, you guys. This is again this same infinite animation is going on. Simple GIF or SVG animations that go on forever on your site, and then the scan sort of follows your cursor. Exact same effects, different colors. Mind you, these colors do work well together, but again, same exact thing happening. Once you're sure that this effect that you've made looks good, you just sort of do it 1,000 times over, and then you sort of come back. I think this is what we started from. Alright, this is the one we started from. So they have just 5 different slides of the same thing. Now we're going to sort of scroll down. Again, one of the other cool effects that we notice is you can also scroll horizontally, and you can also scroll vertically. So if you go in this direction, you have this beautiful horizontal scroll that comes in, but once you start scrolling vertically, that's another dimension that you get to work with. 2D, once you start to utilize the full potential of 2D, not just scroll in one direction, once you also start to scroll like this, your UI game goes to a completely different level. Again, smooth animations, and I just now said this. Once you start to scroll not only vertically, not only like this, but also like this, and you're going to see what I'm talking about. See, this just sort of goes on the x-axis, just animating together. Your UI game goes to a completely different level. Check out, you guys. This is simple stuff, just completely simple stuff. Card with a border radius, card with another border radius, sort of 2 rectangles, and then some text, some more text. This is an infinite animation, or it could be a video, and that just goes on infinitely. Nothing complicated about it at all. The only reason this seems like a cool site to us, and a lot of award sites are a lot of optical illusions, that's a part of UI design as well. You just sort of go, once you're scrolling, technically you're scrolling on this bar, but what's physically happening is it goes on to have a sort of a horizontal animation. So this is another very, very cool effect. One, you try to scroll like this, but your animation goes like this. This is very, very cool effects to look out for. And once you start to scroll, they automatically bend to a lower direction, if you know what I'm talking about. So this automatically sort of bends to form a curve. Just one of those really, really cool effects that you always want to look forward to. And did you just check this out? This is the coolest effect ever. When you have something scroll into view, you always get a cursor or some sort of media query that goes on, that works on some sort of event listener that tells you that something is just now happening. And so when this text comes into view, you automatically change the color of these texts for one blip of a second, and after delay you sort of take it out. So this is just us breaking down this UI design into its simplest steps. And now we're going to sort of scroll out of it. Again, very, very simple, smooth scroll. This guy was also rotating, and I think this is very, very doable with spline. We're going to jump into it. If you guys want to see how to make these things, we'll at the same time we'll start to make this design in Figma as well. Just type I in the comments if you want to see this tomorrow and how we go about making this UI design. If you want to see it, just type I in the chat and we'll do it tomorrow. Alright, the next section that we want to talk about here is this one. again, the only thing that's happening here, it's just smoothly scrolling, nothing too complicated happening at all. Smooth scroll, and then that's it. Two different sections, very well organized, of course, a very good sense of, so sorry, what happened right now? All right, there's a very good sense of sort of these two sections. So they've basically given us a vertical line that straight away goes across, and it sort of differentiates between these two different images. Very simple stuff. The next section that we're looking at is, again, and I said this before, once you scroll into view, you get this beautiful exact, so right now they've divided this into two different sections, and when you start scrolling down, they do the exact same thing, divide the screen into three different sections. This is again a very popular form of UI. Currently you have two different sections on one of your screens, and as you start to scroll down, you give them a little bit of breathing room, the breathing room that they've given us right here, and then they start to have three different sections. These animations are exactly very same. Just let's just go back. I think I came in too deep. How do I go back? I don't want to come here. Let's just go back. Wow, I cannot go back. All right, and I'm back. Let's just talk about what was going. Let's just talk about what was going on over here. All right. So the fun thing over here is, every single time you hover over one of these, you have 2 or 3 circles in this corner sort of hiding. But once they get that your cursor is in hover mode, they sort of beautifully scale open and cover the entire screen. So they scale to a size which is much bigger than this rectangle, and then that gives you the beautiful illusion that these circles have sort of given way to these images, but in fact it was these 2 to 3 different circles which had a fill of images, and that just sort of reveals itself as just as soon as you hover. So notice when I hover in this corner, 2 or 3 circles just sort of open themselves up, and they have a fill of an image, which is what you'd put in Figma, and that lets you have these beautiful circles. This button is again a very plain button, nothing complicated at all, just one plain button and just nothing at all, and just text in the middle. That's it. Again, this also just puts one icon in the middle. You can scroll around to these, and then that's going to give you that same exact feature where you hover over on the top left corner, and 2 or 3 different circles with a completely different fill, either of an image or of a color, just sort of open up to give you this splash animation. The simplest of effects ever. The next thing we're going to look at is this, and again, I've said this before, once you scroll into view, you get a particular signal from an event listener, and what that helps you do is you automatically change the color of the text that you're scrolling into. So this is just one simple complicated feature, and it's just not as big brain as it sounds. It's extremely simple to make, and just making it on a scale that is big enough helps you get to a point where you can make a site like this. Again, very simple stuff, smooth scrolling. Just this text is sort of bent. You could use the arc plugin if you were thinking about it, or you could just take apart all of these alphabets and place them in their own specific X and Y axis position. They've just sort of placed and translated all of these to different positions. This is, I believe it's an image, and it has a little bit of text over it. They've also given this text an absolute value and a transform translate Y position. If you're a web developer, you know what I'm talking about. Again, one simple image, one simple piece of text, and a button, and then a little bit of text here as well. But one thing that you always need to make sure of is, when you're having these many elements on your design, you always need to make sure there's some amount of breathing room here and here. So breathing room, which is also called white space, is very important in designs like these. Also, let's just go back to our screen. Once we start scrolling now, we get this beautiful curve. So this curve sort of masks so they've basically created one rectangle right here, and the other rectangle is right here. So these are just 2 different rectangles. This is one rectangle in the background, and this is another rectangle in the background. They've just created a curve from the pen tool, which is available on the top left in Figma, and they've sort of just created this curve, and then they've used a mask group, which is a common feature, look it up, and they've just sort of just closed this circle off. A couple of rectangles here and there, border radius is very important, and of course breathing room here, breathing room here, breathing room here, breathing room here. If you do not put breathing room, this design is going to look like complete trash. Always make sure there is some breathing room in your designs. And again, plain text here, plain text below, plain text in this icon again has a drop shadow, and as soon as you hover over it, it sort of just goes missing. So that's the main effect that's happening over here. Again, these are moving as we scroll, and this is also a very, very simple effect in Figma. Your scroll position, and this is the most underlying principle of this whole design, your scroll position and having an idea of what position you've scrolled to gives the designer so much control over what you're making. They can change the color of the text you're scrolling into, they can change the positions of these images. Check this out, the position of this image changes on a completely different z-axis level or completely different axis level in the 3D mode when you know what position on the whole UI design they've scrolled into. So scroll positions, and we're probably going to do a tutorial on this channel about that as well, changes so much about what you're basically building. And this is just again scrolling according to, this is just again coming up according to our scroll positions. A very, very simple effect in Figma, very, very simple. These are exact same buttons, just drop shadow which sort of just scales back down to 0 as soon as you hover over it. Very, very simple things to do. And we also have this nice guy, which is actually, interestingly, this is a game. You can press on space to jump, and every single time there's something you can jump, and every single time you get that, there is this beautiful, you could use a animation for this, you could use plain text that changes color for this, and it just sort of jumps, and when it doesn't, it just says arc, and that's just a really cool effect that you can have a UI design. And again, this is scrolling in the horizontal mode, have a UI design. Maybe if the product is fun enough, you could try to incorporate a game into it, which is also something we could take a look into at some point. Having a UI design, putting a game into it, ultimate greatest marketing strategy for web designers ever. Design is, if in case you're wondering about how we made this game, these are just simple plain SVGs that are just in an infinite scroll position loop, sort of scrolling vertically. So this scroll bar is going down vertically, but there is another horizontal scroller here, which isn't the most complex thing ever, but just the fact that you can have both vertical and horizontal scrolling on a website takes your website design game to a completely different level. This is again our footer, very, very simple footer, by the way, you guys. Nothing complicated here at all, no special effects, no special animations, zero use of anything that is just weird and uncalled for. Simple text right here, simple text right here, simple text right here. Again, and this is again that exact same button which I was talking about. A little bit of a drop shadow on the y-axis, but once you hover over it, it sort of just goes missing. And this is the UI design that we just talked about today. Now I'm going to show you a couple of really cool things you can take a look into if you're inspired by this design, if you want to do something similar. So a thing that I just recently discovered on Awwwards.com is, if you go to Awwwards.com, Shubhu says, great for web designers, nightmare for developers. Shubhu, we're trying to break this whole website is a complicated one. It isn't easy even for a UI designer. We're trying to take this whole thing, break it down into very, very simple components, and even if you're a developer like me, I'm also a developer, also a designer, you will understand that all of these elements are pretty simple to build once you start to understand how they work. And that's the goal of this series. Not the most, it's a little bit more complicated maybe if you don't have any idea of what you're doing, but it's very, very doable. It's not the cliche complete nightmare for developers. I disagree on that. And now I'm going to show you something really cool as well. Every single time Awwwards posts a site that is the site of the year, site of the month, site of the day, whatever it is, they also post this very, very detailed case study. So you can just go right here, click on font and color, and that gives you the font that they've used completely on the site, which is a very, very refreshing font, quite similar to Outfit, which I use all the time in my streams. New Montreal 2020. This is super duper fun as a font. You can just sort of copy it if it's available on Google Fonts and stuff. And again, now we're talking about our color palette, which is one of the reasons this design works together. If they had used a shade of green which wasn't as close to this, which didn't work with the mustard yellow and the orange, the whole design would have fallen apart completely, you guys. Completely it would have fallen apart. And that is why it's always so important to make sure you're using the correct color palettes. If you as a beginner in UI design, open up Figma and get stuck with what you're going to be building on next. If we have a special challenge going on this channel. If we complete 300 subscribers by the 20th, I'll share my complete color and typography cheat sheet with you guys. The next thing we're going to look at is another UI design from Awwwards. So I want you guys here to vote. Which one should we look at? Should we look at this one or should we look at this one? Because both of these are really, really cool. Just type left for the left one, right for the right one, and we'll leave it for the audience. Let's just go with this one. It's something I've never taken a look at, but it would be cool. Left one is legendary. Let's take a look at KPR. And I had no idea we would be looking at 2 UI designs today, but here we go. Again, a really, really cool animation. This could be a video if you wanted it to be, but I believe it is text. Sort of had this SVG completion animation. This could again be a video. I'm just going to mute the sound because copyrights and whatnot. Again, this does look quite amazing. This does look quite legendary, but we're going to start to break it down into its individual sections. This image follows the cursor right at that moment, but not the most complicated thing in the whole world. Once you start to click on the left animation, you see that this is a very, very common kind of cliche layout as well. Even though they've styled it amazingly, their layout isn't something that you'd never expect. This is something that you and me do as common UI designers. So this is our left UI design. We're going to be getting into the navigation section really, really simply. They've placed the links that you want to click on the most often on the top bar, and I'm just breaking down the navigation section in the very, very beginning. And this is our button. This button isn't even very complicated to begin with. Just had a border radius for a single direction, or you could use a mask, border radius, and then no border radius here. And you can, did you know you can put individual border radiuses for each of the different corners in Figma? And this is one of the best steps to make a button that looks like this. Their font isn't the most fanciest one here. It's quite a simple font. You could find a couple of others like this, and then it's just this image is following you everywhere, and that just makes it look like a big effect in your face. Now let's get to the left animation section. Again, every single time, and I've said this so many times already, and this is already the first video, every single time you as a designer make an effect that is really, really cool, make sure to use it at least 8 times in that same website. That gives it a sense of unison and a sense of theme that nothing else would. Even if you want to have 3 different effects, make sure to have the first effect 8 different times so that it at least looks thematic. So you might notice here, when you hover on any of these links, these texts automatically go through this whole cycle of ABCD until they reach the font that you want to. And this is a really, really cool animation that they've built. Once they've built this animation, and this is an animation you don't see on everyday sites, once they built this animation, they retained it for the left navigation as well. So right here, they've just changed the font family, they've just changed the size, just changed the line height, but every single time you hover over it, it just does that exact same ABCD kind of effect. That exact same effect happens every single time. It looks cool once, and then it looks cool again. So this is the thing about legendary effects. If you make an effect that looks really, really cool, really, really epic, make sure to copy it like 10 different times. Use it everywhere you possibly can. And again, that exact same thing happens over here on Twitter, here on Discord, here on OpenSea, and you can switch the long language as well, but I only know English, so we're going to stick to that. Again, this is just a very, very simple overlay of lines and a simple rectangle. So they've built a rectangle, they've given us this beautiful logo, and they've probably got music going here as well, which you can turn on and off. And also there's this really, really simple text on the leftmost column. Once you sort of drag it, this whole wave of light takes over, which is another layered effect. Super cool stuff. Simple text going on right here, and again simple text going on right here as well. Even though their text is in very, very random positions, not positions that you would see it usually in, they've made sure to always keep white space going, breathing room going every single place. And this is what I say all the time. I know I've already used this term way too often. Make sure to have some breathing room in your UI designs. If they had just clumped it in one column, it would not look breathable. It would look weird. Make sure to give your designs some amount of breathing room. Please, 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 please. And if you're using two different texts, one for description, one for titles, always make sure there is so much difference in the font families, in the font sizes, that anyone, even one who's not a UI designer, can tell that this font size and this font size is different. These very, very simple tips are going to take your common UI designs, turn them into things that look like this. Simple techniques. Let's just keep on scrolling. Once you start to scroll, this video overlay which had taken in the background of this image sort of starts going away, and this is again a really, really cool animation. You're trying to scroll vertically, but the video is pulling it apart horizontally. Again, make sure to use the true power of 2D and 3D. Once you're scrolling vertically, you can have important to know where your user is in terms of the scroll bar. It just starts to get smaller until it fits into this image mask. This, people ask me how you would make something like this. We had a question like this on Discord today as well. The thing with making shapes like these is you don't use border radiuses. Of course you could use a border radius, but a border radius does not allow you to do this weird lift effect and also this weird cut effect. So this is not something that you would make with border radiuses. Common misconception fixed today. You go ahead with the pen tool, create a vector that looks like this, and use that SVG that you've just created with the pen tool or the pencil tool as a mask for an underlying super cool looking image. These are masks, these are not border radiuses, neither of these. Once you start to hover over it, the size of the vector that you've made scales to about 120% of its initial size, and the image does not change at all, and this is why it gives it such a weird effect. Once you start to sort of hover into this image, the actual image remains the exact same, and this SVG, this shape which we had made with the pen tool, scrolls up. Again, same text, just same text. The only thing they've made sure of is plenty of breathing room and different font sizes. Said this before, saying this again, plenty of breathing room here, and also difference in font sizes. Anyone, even someone who isn't a beginner in UI, who isn't a UI designer, would always could be able to tell you really simply that this font size and this font size are completely different. And they've retained the whole rectangle with the lines vibe here as well. Plenty of breathing room. These are vectors which you make with your pen tool, and then we're sort of scrolling further. This is again a very really cool effect. They take what's going on here and they take your scroll position and divide it from the actual length of the website. So they've sort of visualized the length of the website right here, and this is sort of a graphical visualization into how much of the website you've covered yet. This is really helpful for users as well. We start scrolling in, and this just becomes this image that flips up weirdly. Again, super duper cool. We're sort of scrolling into these come up on scroll kind of animations. Simple animations to make, nothing too complicated, just stuff you do really simply. And again, we've got some really simple text, some text that shows you the symbols and stuff. Anyone who's a beginner in UI design could tell you that these are completely different font sizes. Make sure your font sizes are completely different. Do not make them equal in sizes, even if you have plenty of breathing room. If you have breathing room, let it sit. And by the way, did you guys notice they're using the golden, if I get this correctly, they're using the golden ratio here, right here. So they've sort of put in a rectangle and a couple of squares and stuff, and I'm pretty sure they're using the whole golden ratio Fibonacci kind of golden rectangle. Let me just show you the golden rectangle really quickly. This is again something that UI designers use but don't tell you. This is the golden rectangle. It's sort of an infinitely similar kind of shape, and they've used that exact same thing right here. So a hidden secret which we might dive into. If you type G in the chat, and if I get enough G's, we'll get into golden rectangles for UI design at some point on this channel. Subscribe for that. Otherwise, this is a hidden secret if you just want to take a one-liner from right here. Golden rectangle, also very helpful. And now we're just scrolling down. This is a plain video that scrolls down because you've sort of come into view. This is a video that is inside of a vector mask, a mask that has been made with the pen tool. Simply, very simply. And again, we're sort of scrolling into view. This rotates. Again, make sure to use the power of 3D, the power of 2D, the power of all of these different dimensions. Don't just scroll in one single direction. And again, we have this plain text going on. This text is rotated to 90 degrees. Of course it is. This text has a huge font size. Any beginner could tell you that this font size, and this font size are very different, but always make sure font sizes are very different. They've, even when they have like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 different elements of UI design, they've always managed to make sure there is a lot of breathing room available even when there isn't. So breathing room, always important. This is an infinite animation. This could be a video. I'm pretty sure this is a video because it's the easiest way to get this done. This is also an image which sort of follows your cursor, and this is very similar to the Mana Yerba made site which we looked at. This cursor follows this can, and then this cursor is also followed by this image. Now you'll start to notice that there are patterns in different Awwwards UI designs as well. So this cursor is being followed, this cursor is also being followed. This is an exact same effect. People use it 1,000 times over. Not many people know about how to make this work, and this is what, check out the similarity. This is going on here, this is going on here. There is an infinite animation going on here, and there is an infinite animation going on here. All of these are almost the same sites at their core, which is such a hidden secret, if I'm being honest. Let's just scroll down. Again, things blur. Instead of just scrolling up, they sort of blur back into view, and that's a really cool use of 3D as well. And this starts to scale up. This purple border starts to scale up, and this gives you this beautiful image. This exact same shape has been retained, but the internal fill images have been changed. And again, font size here, font size here. Any beginner baby who isn't a UI designer could tell you these are different font sizes. Plenty of breathing room at the top, plenty of breathing room on the left side, plenty of breathing room on the right side. And again, I start to notice that there are a lot of really cool cards happening here as well, which sort of go back into view. Infinite animations happening again. I'm not controlling this with my cursor. Infinite animations are going to be your down now. Again, the amount of site that you complete is sort of calculated and presented right here, which is a very cool effect. Once we start to scroll, you notice that they've basically made 3 different shapes, and these shapes are sort of covering up the video that is inside, and they're sort of scaling up the mask to reveal the video that is behind this all. And again, some text right here. Once you start to scroll, you start to see the amount of text and sort of blurs out into view. Let's just go back to these images. Again, one more vector image which is and always they make sure to hide that breathing room. A little bit of a golden rectangle rule going on here. So if you take a look at this golden rectangle, and then I'm not just making up random patterns here, you guys. Take a look at this right here. There's a Shubhu says, how can we show the idea of these animations in Figma to the clients which could be coded in 3JS? If no reference to this website, your mic goes to sleep in between. My stupid mic. Alright. I believe it's working right now. Just tell me when it goes to sleep in between. Number 1, you need to have your videos ready. So a lot of these animations in the first site that we saw, in the second site that we're seeing today, a lot of these animations have beautiful videos that are going on in the background. The first step is to have these videos ready. I don't know if you have access to a video editor, if you don't, but all of these sites use beautiful videos, and also you can actually present them in Figma. It does take a little bit of advanced UI techniques, but the fact of the matter is you can. And if we get enough eyes in the comments today, we will, and if we get enough likes in this video, we will start taking a look at in the coming next 1 or 2 days. We'll start to make UI designs like these in Figma, which otherwise could only be made using a library like 3JS, JavaScript, in web development. So yes, they can be made in Figma, and we're going to be starting to take a look at this. Make sure to like this video. If we get a lot of likes today, we will take a look at sort of how we can make UI designs like these in Figma. It's very, very doable, because without planning, I don't think people just directly go to HTML, CSS, JavaScript and just start coding things up. Of course they have plans, of course they have directions, and even if you can't do certain things in Figma, there are always tools, there are always ways to make these plans, the plans that these designers use to make sites like these. And we're going to be getting a little bit into the sort of UI design plans that these people use, which beginners in UI design don't. Again, plenty of breathing room once you transition between two different videos, and image masks going here, image masks going here. Do not miss the breathing room. If they had used even a little bit less space, it would have looked like a completely nightmare of a site, just hellish and no breathing room at all. Font size here, completely different. A very, very cool game-like video, of course, but again, this follows your cursor, so check it out. If I go right here, this is again a video that's full screen, but it is still following my cursor. This effect is exactly the same as this effect technically. It is exactly the same, you guys, and I cannot wait to have a tutorial on this channel about how to have this follow your cursor effect, because that is what gives birth to this and all of these site of the years on Awwwards. Let's start scrolling. I hope my mic isn't asleep. My mic works fine. Again, plenty of breathing room. Font size here and font size here are completely different. No one could mistake them as the same or almost similar font sizes. Always make sure to have completely different font sizes on the same screen. And again, these are videos or images, and then you basically have these image masks. When you hover on this, the image and the position of the images does not change. The absolute position of the image remains the same. Only this image mask sort of turns and twists a little bit, goes into different x and y axis locations according to your cursor. This is also following your cursor, much like this can. This is also following your cursor very, very similarly to this can, and it sort of does the same exact effect over and over again. Let's just scroll down. All right, this is again a very, very simple navigation bar, and I've said this before in the very, very beginning of this UI design. This sort of just goes into this ABCD and sort of figures out what word we're doing. They've made this one really, really cool effect and made sure to use it 1,000 times over on the same UI design, which is a very, very good thing. This gives it a sense of unison and a sense of theme that otherwise you won't get. If you have stumbled across, if you have already built 3 cool effects in UI design, make sure to use them 8 different times. People freak out and people want to use that. People don't want to use that same effect over and over again, but make sure to use that same effect at least a couple of times over and over. Effect is used on hovering over these as well. The difference between these fonts and these fonts is that the font family is different and the font size is different. Font families are so different that it seems like a completely different thing. I'm in love with this font. So amazing, super fun. And let's just download this book. In fact, it's a zip file. I don't know if that's a very doable thing on this stream. This is a footer, very, very simple footer, using that same effect, ABCD, and then sort of coming back, and then this rectangle sort of covers over the whole thing. This again does a very, very simple text, nothing complicated at all. If you'd want, we could take a look at the fonts that they're using, because of course the fonts here today were very, very special. And we're going to be looking at one more font. So Whittle Trap is one of the fonts that we're using. Hexaframe is another font that we're using, and take a look at the fonts yourself. Again, colors, always make sure you guys, colors on your sites need to work really, really well together. These colors, I think a lot of sites on Awwwards are built by the fact that you have these beautiful videos and beautiful video edits in the background, and that's the case with this site. That is not the case with this site necessarily. A lot of this is very, very developer and designer centric, so you could make this really, really easily even if you're not a video special cool effects guy. But I think this requires a lot of video effects, more video effects than you realize. And let's just jump back to one more UI design. let's just do one more UI design. A lot of sites on Awwwards that look really cool have beautiful video edits, and I checked out this Persepolis Imagined site, of course, and this site you can go ahead and check it out. I'll be taking a look at a different design today. This is very similar to this UI, which is why I sort of put out an option. Both of these have beautiful video edits going on, and that's the only reason they look as cool as they do. That's one of the reasons they look as cool as they do. Let's take a look at Nomo Agency as well. This is also one really cool UI design. If you like what we're doing today, make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel. We come here live every single day at 6 p.m. Indian Standard Time to talk about cool award sites, cool sites, cool site effects, and maybe make them in the coming episodes. This, again, a lot of what we're looking at today is very similar in technical terms. Check this out, you guys. Very simple logo, nothing complicated happening here at all. Again, I did this on yesterday's UI design build as well. On yesterday's episode, we, in the very end, in the last 10 minutes, we took a look at one of these award sites, and they had this SVG fill effect going on, and this Nomo Agency website also has that same exact effect going on. So SVG fill effect is going to be your friend. Once you figure out how to make it in Figma, make sure to use it 1,000 times over. Very important. This is going on, this is a video, or this isn't, but this is going on for an infinite amount of time. Glass morphism effect. This is actually a video. This is just a video, plain MP4 video. A really cool video editor, of course, but a really simple video. And again, this text and this text gives you plenty of breathing room at the top, breathing room in the center, breathing room at the bottom, and the font sizes are vastly different. Any baby who isn't a UI designer could tell you that this font size and this font size are so different, you guys. Same two principles working all the damn time. And again, now once you start scrolling, the other sites had us scrolling, when we were scrolling them vertically, they were scrolling like this, the last site, but this site is actually doing this exact same thing on its mirror image. So they've basically, when you try to scroll down, instead of scrolling like this, they go up, which is something that just messes with your head so much, because we're used to scrolling things below. But again, a really cool effect at that. And again, another few videos this might seem like this is a cool glass morphism effect, but this is actually just one 3D video that is going on infinitely. This is again one more video that's going on infinitely. When you hover over any of these, they pause, which is why it gives you this weird optical illusion feel. But when you hover over it, they pause. Again, more text. This text and this text are completely different font sizes. Anyone could tell you. Plenty of breathing room. Do not forget the importance of white space in UI design ever. The button here is also really simple. Just a simple video kind of mask which goes on when you hover over it, which flips the color. So this is the exclusion or difference filter in Figma, which just does this color change effect for you. I think they have a really cool block SVG going on here, which sort of does this effect. But once they figured out this, and I've never checked out this website before, you guys, never before today, and I can guarantee that once you start scrolling, this button is going to be used 1,000 times over. I can practically guarantee that. Let's see what else they have in plan. Let's just start scrolling. And again, this is another thing that messes with your head so damn much. You're scrolling down, but it actually goes up, and these are just really simple effects, but they're messing with your head to make you think that this is a site that can never be built, which is false. This text and this text for the 1,000th time, completely different font sizes. Anyone could tell you. Make sure to give it a lot of size difference between your title and description font. If you're making a modern UI design, make sure there is plenty of breathing room, and the same exact button goes on here as well. Again, make sure to keep your description and your text font exactly the same. And then we're scrolling, and again, this exact same thing keeps on happening. Infinitely animating videos. They seem like glass morphism, but they're actually not. These are just really well made videos that pause when you hover over them. So if I hover over it, it'll sort of slow down or completely come to a halt. But these are 3D videos that go on infinitely. Font size here, completely different, and a lot of space here as well. A lot of breathing room. A crap ton of breathing room. And again, you start to scroll down, but it actually scrolls upwards, which messes with your head a lot. And this is also sort of bending into this direction when it's scrolling. So again, cute bunny, really cute bunny, but infinitely animating here, infinitely animating here, infinitely animating here, continues to stay the same. This is a completely different font size from this, really nice. And again, we're just scrolling down now, but it's actually starting to scroll up and in the leftward direction, which messes with your head a lot as a designer. Let's just sort of try to zoom in again. Font size here, completely different. These are just not exactly the same font sizes, anyone could tell you, and plenty of breathing room. Always make sure there's breathing room. If they had taken all of these special effects, I can guarantee if they had not given us so much white space, it would have completely messed up the whole thing. Completely. Again, another video that's going on infinitely. It might look like glass morphism, but it is not. It's just a video that's animating infinitely. Same exact font size, but these are of equal value. Same exact font size, but these are of equal value. Two different bullet points. And again, now I'm going to make myself completely clear. This navigation bar uses glass morphism. This video does not. And the way you find that out is you can actually see the glass morphism happening here. You can see this interactive change into a really blurry feel, but that does not happen here. So this is false glass morphism, not happening here. Smooth scroll working always, even when your font size is extremely large like this. There is an equal amount of, if not more, breathing room happening here and here. Very simple text. Completely, you can just use auto layout, same font size, nothing too complicated here. They've just given us this stroke and added a border radius, stroke of 1-2 pixels, nothing bigger than that. Same exact font size, plenty of breathing room. Even though there's not a lot of breathing room here, there is so much breathing room here that just helps you out so much visually. Again, plenty of breathing room here as well. And now we have a video playing, and this is another one. This play button is another one of those. I think this might be glass morphism. I'm starting to doubt if this is glass morphism at this point. I don't know. This could be. It isn't. It actually isn't, because we had a different screen come in, and it's not. It's because this is sort of going on over here and that's going on over here. So no, this is not glass morphism. This is just an infinitely animating weird triangle which just goes on forever. This is a video which you could play. This is also having videos that sort of weirdly scroll into view when you play is one of the fun tactics by Apple's new launches of technology and stuff like that, which is a cool effect from the Apple website if you want to check it out. Again, a very well made video which powers through your whole UI design journey. This font size and this font size are super duper different. Never make your font sizes equal and leave a lot of breathing room once again. And we'll just start scrolling in. And again, I've said this before in the Mana Yerba made site, and I'm going to say this in the Nomo agency site. It's a really cool effect if you're trying to scroll down but your elements come up like this. It's a really cool effect, you guys. Learn this once, use it 1,000 times over. Boom, you are a completely different UI designer. Your skill level goes from here to here. Scroll down a little bit more, and again, this is actually one of the places where glass morphism is happening, and these rectangles are just going up and down infinitely. This is a little bit of a drop shadow is here as well, or it could be a 3D element. Both of these are very good possibilities. Font size here are completely different, you guys. Never mistake that ever. Again, you're basically, I'm trying to scroll down below, but it is scrolling down in this weird horizontal curve, which was also something that was happening here. So I was trying to scroll down below, but check this out. I'm scrolling below down, but this is actually scrolling. The website is scrolling in a curve like this, horizontal curve, if that makes sense. That exact same thing is happening here. When I'm trying to scroll down, the website goes in a horizontal curve. So many patterns in today's UI, guys. So many patterns. Again, that exact same layout is followed down below as well. So they not stumbled upon per se, they've made a beautiful pattern where they've had a very comically large font size for the title, and then it's vastly different from the font size in the description, but at the same time they've given us a lot of breathing room, and then they just repeat that here as well. Complete repetition. Again, these are 3D elements, videos of 3D elements which just go on infinitely, and then every single time you scroll into what's important, this just scales up. This video scales up from 0 to 100 depending on your scroll position. So if your scroll position reaches here, a weird 3D element which is scaled to 0% right now, which will scale up to a complete 100, which is something that makes your UI very cool as well. Again, this happens for 4 complete different times, and then again we're doing the same exact thing. We're taking this title and sort of just repeating it again. Something that we were yet to see, which is now happening, is we are now taking a look at accordions from an award site, which is a first for all of us. Let's just take a look. And this effect is such a hidden effect. People don't know about it enough. Once you try to hover over one of these elements, it changes into this beautiful image, which is so fun to look at. Super duper nice, super duper fun. And every single time you scroll into something different, not only does this opacity get to a complete 100, all of these are other opacities of 60 to 80%, but also there is an image which was scaled previously to 0, but now but its opacity comes back to 1, if that makes sense. Again, a couple of other effects happening here as well. Simple accordions, but the only special effect here is there is an image which was previously set to opacity 0%, but now it gets back up to an opacity of 100%. These texts again are, there's nothing complicated at all. One simple effect is all it takes to transform the way you look at this UI. Consider this a really cool effect. But other than this image effect, these long lists of text are just simple texts with different font sizes and auto layouts and stuff. All right, let's get down from this section. Font size here, completely different font sizes, anyone could tell you. And there is a lot of spacing here as well. White space, breathing room, whatever you want to call it, they are always making sure you have plenty of room to breathe. I gotta drink water, hold on. And we're back. Font size here, completely different. A ton of breathing room, and they have understood, as designers, they've understood the importance of breathing room or white space here, to the extent that the main position, like most of us would just put text here and leave breathing room here and here, but they understand the importance of breathing room to the extent that they've left this main central position for white space or breathing room, which is something really important if you have these cool animation effects going on all the time. Again, these are videos which you could just click on. This is a really cool icon, this is a really cool font, but icon and font. And once they've made this beautiful card with this button effect, which we looked at yesterday as well, going on infinitely, you could check out yesterday's video if you want to see how they made this button, the last couple of minutes. And they've just taken this card and they've just sort of duplicated it a couple of times, over and over again, 5 different times. Make a good card once, replicate it 5 different times. It's much easier than making 5 different cards with 5 different cool animations. Much easier. And again, font size here, vastly different. A lot of breathing room, crap ton of breathing room, and this beautiful font. So you could just type out, and when you start to hover over it, this opacity gets down to a really low 10, 20, 30, 40%. You can type out whatever your name is. You could type out other details as well. And this is, I think, my browser just telling me that this is an email, not the award site actually doing it. Font size here, vastly different. This button is really similar to the one we used previously. Remember, in the very beginning I said they would use this button again. They have used this same exact square SVG, same exact hover to change color, invert the colors, filter, fill. I said this and I'm saying this again. They've reused that same effect over and over again. Once you hover over this, they change the font color, which is a really simple effect to make, and a really simple footer as well. So you might notice here on most of these sites, we focus, as normal UI designers, most UI designers focus on having a complicated footer. But stylish UI designers, smart UI designers who get published on awards and stuff like that, make sure their texts and their footers are just extremely simple, because most people are going to get to your footer for plain navigation. No complicated effects happening here at all, only this SVG fill effect, which is actually something they've used in their links as well. Very simple effect, plain effect, nothing too complicated. Just when you don't change the font color or font size, it's the simplest way to describe that you're actually hovering on something. Nothing complicated happening in the footer at all, just 4 different fonts, auto layout, a couple of pixels of spacing. This is just plain text, one single emoji, same exact logo, and this beautiful, I think this is a video. What is it? Is this a video or is this? I think this is a video. This is a pixel art video, which is fun pixel art combined to infinitely animate over and over again. Super duper fun as a website. This is super duper amazing. If enough of you guys type M in the chat, we will look at one more UI. Try to look at one more Awwwards UI. Just type something in the chat. Type M in the chat for I want to look at more UIs. Just really quickly. Let me know in the chat if you guys want to look at one more UI, and then we're going to be live at 8 p.m. as well. Let's just give this a couple of minutes. All right, we've got one last M. We're going to take a look at one last UI design, and then that's it. Which design should we take a look at? Let's just do this. This looks quite cool. Synchronized Studio. Let's go to this site. It's called Chunky U. I hope I'm reading that correctly. Beautiful UI design. Again, the main element of their navigation bar, and I'm just trying to get to the beginning of this website really quickly. In fact, I don't think it was here. I think it was, let me just get back. I think they were using the same effect in the navigation section here as well. So 3 different partitions for your navigation. One on the left side, always there is a logo on this corner, one in the center, and this has a lot of links. In this case, they haven't used a lot of links. They have actually used a simple menu icon, and again, this is another settings icon, which is giving us a ton of cool effects. This UI is the best one I've looked at so far, 10 out of 10. Let's just start scrolling down and see what's what. So all of these are scrolling differently based on what position you have. Again, a very cool effect, but it is very simple to make in Figma. So that's the give and take of this whole element, and this just sort of goes up and down. This font and this font are completely different font sizes, as is this font. Plenty of breathing room, common pattern figured out, but they've made sure this font overlaps this font, and that's another new fill, that's a new effect that's going on, starting to overlap these beautiful fonts while having these completely different colors and completely different text sizes as well. 2 different font sizes, 2 different fonts. One is serif, one is sans serif. Nothing too complicated about that. Let's just start scrolling, and they've used a vector mask over here, which helps us look into what's going on in the center. I think this might be a mistake. I think this works for bigger UI screens than mine. I think this is a mistake. I don't think this is very intentional. So we're just going to have to overlook that. But they have this really cool text ring going, which is in fact overlapping, which I'm not the biggest fan of. But they have this really simple circle, which is masking the image which is behind, and masking was another common factor which was going on here as well. So they were using this shape to mask the video within, and they're just using this shape to mask this image within. Same exact concept used over and over again. Let's just get down, and this is just, as we start to scroll, there's just smooth scroll. This font size, this font size, this font size are vastly different. Anyone could tell you. There are, again, these are just very simple, very plain, different vectors that are just overlapping, and this site is based on overlapping big time. This is just overlapping your main text. Let's just keep on scrolling down. We've got one image over here, one image over here, and again, a cool shape that just sort of covers and masks your whole image. Text here, completely different font sizes, plenty of breathing room. Even though the colors change, there is plenty of breathing room, and we're just going to keep on scrolling. One image, 2 image, and all of these images basically shift into different positions once you start to hover on them, and this sort of starts to become bigger, this text, which is quite cool. This font size and this font size are completely different again as well, and we're going to keep on scrolling. Again, this is the exact same effect that they made over here. Once you make a really cool effect, keep on doing it over and over again. This isn't as cool of a site in terms of technicalities as the last 3 that we took a look at, but the colors and the font here are on point, which just makes this site give you the best first impression in the whole world. Again, they're using the same exact card effect which they used in the previous 2 UI designs, and again, we've got this text overlapping this simple image, this vector which is in on top of the text, overlapping the text, making the whole UI design extremely cool. Again, we're just trying to keep on scrolling. One thing that I haven't noticed yet on this design is when you try to scroll down, but it scrolls either above or on the left or right side somewhere else. So different scrolling is not, different directions of scrolling is not one of the things that they've covered in this UI design, but this remains a cool design anyways. And I think that's it. Behance Instagram, plenty of breathing room, completely different font sizes. Don't make two different font sizes for description and title, 32 and 24, because 32 and 28, because they're like 4 pixels apart and completely boring. So this is again very simple text, nothing happening here at all. Just they've made sure of giving us plenty of breathing room, and the fact that these colors work well together. This has been one of the best UI design streams we've ever done in terms of reviewing the stuff that we do review, you guys. Super duper cool, super duper amazing. If you are a UI designer and if you don't have a portfolio website yet, what are you doing that is going to hinder your chances of getting into jobs and getting into freelancing opportunities by such a huge number? So just make sure to join the Discord group, and we have a launch your own portfolio masterclass coming up on the 20th. You'll get all of the details there. I will see you live again on this channel in an hour at 8 p.m. because we're building a really cool UI design completely from scratch here as well, which we always do as a part of the 100 days of UI design challenge. Do not miss it. Make sure to subscribe if we reach 300 subscribers by 20th. I'll share my font and color cheat sheet with you, which is going to take your UI design basic beginner level experience to a completely different level. It's going to change you as a UI designer. I hate to go right now, but I'll be back in an hour. I'll see you again. Until then, goodbye and take care.